And away we go. It's the DFS Early Bird presented by Awesemo.com. I'm Dan Strafford. He's Dave Lonkren. We're here with you on a Friday morning, 7-game NBA slate. But I will say up front here, I have no buzzer attached to me. I have no sort of signals coming to me to alert me to any incoming takes from Dave. Just want to get that out of the way. Dave, how the hell are you doing?
That'd be really weird if you did.
It would be. People might ask some questions.
The Houston Asterix. It is the greatest nickname ever.
What a time to be alive.
It is the greatest nickname ever, and I'm grateful to whoever came up with that. Absolutely love it. And now Mike Trout's getting dragged through the mud.
Yep.
Rumors that he's on HGH, that there's a Carlos Beltran burner account out there. It's out of control.
It's so good. It's so good. It's so bad. It's good is what I meant to say. Like it's really bad.
If it turned out, right? Let's play a game.
Yep.
If it turned out that Trout was busted for using HGH,
I'm all done with baseball.
What would that do to the league?
I mean, what's funny is no one knows who the hell Mike Trout is outside of baseball because of the way they market players and because he plays in Anaheim, all those things. I don't know. I think it does a doozy to statistical analysis because he's been the paragon of it. F4, war, whatever you want to refer to. If he's busted, I think you lose our age group, the ones who lived through the steroid era, the ones who sort of stuck with the game anyway. I think you lose a lot, and then you lose our kids, like our generation's kids will just be like, You know what? Let's watch something else. Let's go. Let's screw it. Let's play League of Legends or whatever the hell it is.
It'd be crazy. I mean, personally, I think I've given you my opinion on this before.
Yep.
I don't have an issue with steroids, but the issue I have is that certain players don't want to destroy their own bodies. So if everyone in the league was just like, oh yeah, do steroids, I don't want to do them. The problem is that everyone that's willing to destroy their own bodies to get ahead is getting ahead at the time, and it's hurting the guys that aren't willing to do that.
Yep.
So in the sense of like, do I think it makes the game more interesting? I do. I mean, it does. Like, there's no question about it. Right. Balls that are hit further, more home runs are better. Pitchers that can throw faster. And I don't know, I don't know the effects like down to the science that they have on players, right? But you know what I mean?
Even if you just consider recovery, right? Just consider recovery,
exactly.
Recovering fast. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah, just performance enhancing.
Yep.
So I've said it to you before, like the idea of you doing that, it's your own body, fine. It's the players that aren't willing to do that, that don't want to sacrifice their future, right? Their retirement. It's not fair to them. So that's why like on the surface, I don't have an issue with it, but it bothers me when other players do that to get ahead. So if that makes any sense. I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know. I'm right there with you. And you think about the quad A player who is really, really good but wouldn't do the drug. And if everybody else is doing the drug and he decides, hey, I want to have a decent heart when I'm 70 years old.
Exactly.
Or I want my testicles to be normal size. He doesn't get to make the majors. He doesn't make millions of dollars.
To be normal size.
I've heard rumors. But I think you're right. And I think that's the moral question of it all, the ethical question. Ethics, not morals. Ethical question of it all. Of
what's the difference between moral and ethical?
I think there's some component to each. I think it's ethical.
There is a difference. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that's more ethics than morality, but I think morality has to do with individual choice, and ethics is more.
I think you're right. There's a difference. I don't know the specific.
Leave a comment, because leave a comment. Everybody's still watching here on YouTube. Leave a comment. Let us know if you know the difference between morality and ethics, because I don't right now. I'm just assuming that is a difference. We will talk NBA. We have 7 games. We're going to go position by position. Just the story of the day. Hard to ignore it and hard to stay away from it as the proverbial shit has hit the fan across all of Major League Baseball on so many different fronts. Like it just keeps coming up. So it stems all from the cheating scandal. But I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to get more and more out of it. Tommy Pham went after Jose Altuve. So there's a lot going on here, and I suspect we're going to see a lot of throws at heads this year from Major League pitchers.
I would think so.
There's going to be a lot of retribution.
Business ethics.
Yeah. All right.
What's that from? business ethics.
I don't know. I have to.
Billy Madison.
Oh, sure. That's right.
Right? Puppy who lost his way.
That's right. That's a great pull from that movie.
Thank you. By the way, this whole thing, like someone said that to me. Someone tweeted at me earlier, like, yeah, players are going to be so pissed. Everyone's going to be gunning for the Astros. I mean, yeah, but at the same time, and then we can move on from this. Like, at the same time, I still have this thinking that, like, how many teams are doing not this specific, but something similar, some form of getting ahead. They just didn't get caught after winning the World Series. Like, how many of these guys, you want to talk about, this is probably morals, right? Maybe this is morals, knowing that you've been doing the same thing and still gunning for the other guy because they won. That's got to be widespread. Maybe I'm wrong. You know what? Maybe I see everything. Maybe I should see.
All right, so quickly here. Ethics refer to rules provided by an external source. Morals refer to an individual's own principles.
Okay, then you were right. Yeah.
How about that?
Look at that. But I'm jaded. You know, I see everything jaded.
Speaking of jaded and jade, I think this is a perfect segue to DFS because I do think it's true. But I think, like, because they won the Millionaire Maker,
exactly,
because they won, people said, whoa, wait a second.
Exactly
Something
right.
doesn't smell right here. And it's the same with the Astros and the Red Sox. Whoa. Something seems a little off. Then people research and they dig and they dig and they dig. Or maybe there's a jealousy factor in there too. There's hey, why do they get to that and I don't get to do that? And they dig into it. It's a loose analogy, but I think the analogy does.
No, and it ties in even further because in that same breath, you don't see the people that have been accused of doing the same thing as Jade and Tanner coming after them. So will those people, will other players, will teams be gunning for them? I personally think that's a little bit overblown. I think we're digging a little too far into it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of projections, the wrong word, but a lot of like what I expect to have happen. Yeah,
but like when the Astros come, I'm a Phillies fan. When the Astros come to Citizens Bank Park, like it's gonna be ruckus. Like they're not even a rivalry, but you know how Philly fans are.
Yeah, dude, when they come, have fun with it. Yeah.
When they come to Yankee Stadium,
that's gonna be.
You have to imagine it's just going to be raining booze for 3 straight hours, which will be.
We'll get to NBA momentarily. The Alex Cora wink at the London series video that we talked about in Slack chat. They got Beltran, now they're fine. We know what's happening. Wink. I wouldn't be surprised if the Yankees have skeletons in the closet. Like there's a lot that I assume we will never hear about here because of the MLB gag order. But it does seem like the players don't care. The players are just going after each other and are tired of it or engaged in it. So it's a story that I do not think will go away quickly. That is for sure.
I agree.
All right, let's talk some NBA. We have 7 games on tap here to walk through, try to get you up to speed, point guard through center. Again, always remember we have the NBA Strategy Show first thing every day, Monday through Saturday. Sunday, sometimes Josh hops on, but Josh is on vacation. How dare he do that? I agree with each and every one of you out there who is signing the petition to bring him back early from said vacation. There's no petition, but Josh, we miss you, of course. Not really. But we have 7 games to get through here, position by position, getting you ready for the Friday slate. And reminding you always, you have NBA Strategy Show, you have the Deeper Dive, which is Dave and Adam, and then you have Live Before Lock, which is a rotating cast of characters over there for the show leading you up to lock. Typically 7 p.m. East Coast time, has been fluctuating to 7:30 p.m. a couple of times this week. But Washington, Toronto, Minnesota, Indiana, Chicago, Philadelphia, Miami, Oklahoma City, Cleveland, Memphis, Atlanta at San Antonio, and then you have Portland and Dallas as the de facto late game at 9:30. We start at point guard, Lofty, where you have Luka Doncic at 12-4. DK has sort of taken the glass ceiling off here. They've taken the ceiling off prices. We've seen them rise throughout the season. Start of the year, we saw no one really approaching anything near 11K. Then it hit 11.5. Now we're up to 12.4, 12.8, 12.6. Doncic sits here at 12-4 against a Portland team that has struggles with point guard. Where do you start at the top end here? Trae Young's above 10K. Ben Simmons has no Embiid still against Chicago, which is a decent matchup. Kyle Lowry in a good spot against Washington. So point guard, not surprisingly, has some good things to offer here right off the bat. What do you like at the top end of the position?
Okay, yeah, and we'll get to some of these injuries
Okay.
when we go throughout the rest of the positions, because there's some significant ones, and there was a trade involving the Atlanta Hawks and the Minnesota Timberwolves sending Jeff Teague
I did
to
not see that.
to the Hawks, back to the Hawks, and in return, I couldn't ask for more. Minnesota Timberwolves get Alan Crabb, so exciting stuff there out in Minnesota. Yeah, so Luka's really expensive, but let's take a look at some of the other options at top tier price points just to break this down. And I'm just going to go across every position real quick from 9K and up because there's not that much. Ben Simmons on DraftKings, 9,300. And on this podcast, we focus a little bit more on DraftKings. It makes it easier just to get through it a little bit more streamlined. Strategy Show gives you every site. So does the Live Before Lock, Deeper Dive, all that good stuff. Then you have Embiid out. Trae Young, 10-2. Karl Anthony Towns was dealing with that knee injury, hasn't played now in over a month. It's been 35, 34, 30. Sorry, tomorrow will be 34 days. It's a knee and it's an illness. So I don't know which one of those is more severe than the other. Ryan Saunders said that it was more of an illness this time and that he could play. Saunders also said that it's very possible he returns this week. So there's not much of this week left. So we'll have to see. I'm not holding my breath, but he's definitely getting a lot closer. And then you have Luka Doncic, right? That's it. So Simmons at 9.3 seems too expensive, even against a pretty rough Chicago team that defensively has played better lately. Trae Young against San Antonio and Luka Doncic. So that tells you all you need to know, right? I think Luka is a really solid option here against Portland. I would expect to see I think this game will probably have like a 227 total, 226. I don't believe we have one yet. If we get one throughout the show, I'll make sure to mention it, but I don't believe we have one yet. You have to like Luka here. He's the best top price guy. As a matter of fact, I have Doncic right now projected for 11 more fantasy points than the next closest player.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Portland struggled against a lot of offensive pieces on the year, and I see -5.5. I don't see an over-under as of yet for this contest. Dallas favored at home. But Doncic, I think you broke it down wisely there on the price points across all positions, especially a set like DK with MPE. I think Doncic will at least be somebody that you reach for. If you can't comfortably get to him where you feel like you're sacrificing too much else, if you're building a single lineup or just a handful, maybe you leave him off. But from an MME standpoint, I assume he'll show up a decent amount if there's value that opens up. You mentioned some of the other injuries that we'll talk about throughout. So you have that opening. Trae Young gets San Antonio, which has gotten a little bit better as the year has gone on when it comes to a defensive perspective, but still, this is a guy who can shoot from anywhere on the court. We know that. He also has assist upside. He's shown a little bit on the steals over the past couple of games, has been rebounding a little bit better this season as well as he continues to get used to the league. What do you feel like Trae Young's prospects against San Antonio are?
I mean, he's played really well, and Jeff Teague is not going to be active in this game. Now,
right.
I think what you would probably see with Teague is him slotting in, getting all the backup point guard minutes. So like, I don't know, 13, 14 minutes at backup point guard, and then probably playing a little bit alongside Jeff Teague too, because it's hard to believe that he's going to come in and only play 13, 14 minutes per game. You know, on it, it doesn't make sense. You know, I'm sure there's more to this trade because Atlanta's not a contender. So there's more to it. I haven't really looked into it much, but Teague being out doesn't hurt him. It doesn't add another player because they brought Trevion Graham in. He's also out. So it was a 2-for-1. I like Trae Young here. I mean, I still have him far behind Luka Doncic from a raw fantasy point perspective, but I think Trae Young has to be considered. I mean, you're talking about a player that has taken huge steps. I mean, from last year to this year, there's no comparison. He's averaging 1.43 fantasy points per minute. He's one of a handful of players in the league that has a 30% plus usage rate, 30+% assist rate. Those are phenomenal numbers. To be exact, 35% usage, 44% assist rate. Actually, guys that have 30 and 40 are very, very hard to come by. I like him. Now, I like Luka over him. Do I think there's going to be opportunities to play both of these guys in the same lineup? I do. We'll have to wait to see what value looks like throughout the day, but I don't think it's impossible. It's going to be tough, no question. And right now, we don't have a ton of value. So hopefully that's going to start opening up. We'll wait on some injuries. And like I said, there are plenty of guys right now that are questionable that in the event that they sit could open a lot of things up.
Interestingly, seeing that the T-Wolves are apparently ramping up their pursuit of D'Angelo Russell.
I know. How about that?
FT deal. But worth keeping an eye on these two top-tier point guards throughout the day. We have ownership projections over at awesemo.com, which may help you better understand if you want to play a Doncic or a Trae Young, if they're single-digit owned for one reason or another, if things break that way. Obviously, their upside and their slate-breaking ability may lead you in that direction. So check out awesemo.com, awesemo_com on Twitter as well for all of our giveaways and the ability to find out promo codes and the like there. Simmons, you already talked about a bit. Kyle Lowry, Lillard, Ja Morant is here at 8K against Cleveland. Van Vliet has a Q tag on him. I know he's dealing with a hamstring issue. I think he's officially questionable, not probable here. We can go down the list of point guards, but let me open it up instead by going one by one. Upper mid-tier. What are some of the names that you think stand out here at first glance?
All right, so we got those two out of the way. They're the two. What's interesting too is that they're the two highest projected players on the slate. If Towns plays, then we can have that conversation. But right now, those are the two guys that are really popping out, and they should. You look at guys like Ja Morant, his price point has come up. That's going to be a little bit more difficult. He's definitely playing much better basketball. I love that he played 37 minutes last time too. I mean, that is huge because that game, Dan, was not an overtime game. So 37 minutes from Ja Morant is definitely not par for the course. It's an exception to the rule, but it's a good exception. And I think there's definitely there's no real precedent here, but I think seeing what we've seen recently, 34 minutes against the Spurs, 30 against Golden State, but they won that game by 20, 31, 37. I think it's fair that anyone that does their minute projections on their own or likes to adjust things with other projections, I think it's about time we start putting him above 30. I think people were probably putting him a little bit above 30 already, but it was tough. I think it's probably about time we put him around 33. And if that's the case, Ja Morant gets a whole lot more interesting. It's tough at this price point, but it is against Cleveland. There's nothing about this Cleveland team that scares anyone. There's a 229 total. Grizzlies are 8-point favorites. So I do think it's a pretty good spot. I do want to check FanDuel and Yahoo just to see where he's coming in at 7,800 on FanDuel.
I have Yahoo open.
Yahoo, he's $30. So
yep.
Nothing crazy, no great value, but he's also not wildly overpriced either. So I like that. DeJounte Murray is priced pretty reasonably too against Atlanta. I mean, this is just when you get the matchup against Atlanta, you're usually going to have some interest here. It's just a phenomenal spot, and there's nothing that's changed recently to suggest Atlanta's going to start getting any better defensively since the start of December. Pull it back like 45 days here. The Atlanta Hawks are, playing at the second fastest pace in the league with a 110.3 defensive rating. So not a good team, not one you worry about. Murray is always a little bit sketchy, just playing under pop, not having any real certainty with his minutes. But I definitely think right now there isn't a lot of value. If Murray gets 28 minutes in tournaments, I definitely have interest in him because it's either that or you're saying, all right, I'll go with a much worse per minute guy and say Darius Garland, who you're hoping to get 30 fantasy points in cash if no value opened up. Right. I think Garland would actually be somewhat viable, but not because you like him, just because he's playing 35 minutes a night. And there's a lot of those type of players on this slate, but no one that jumps off the page as like a really spectacular play in terms of value at point guard right now.
Just quick thoughts here, because I've seen him in a decent amount of ownership, maybe over the past couple of weeks, simply because he's so cheap and playing some minutes for the Washington Wizards. Isaiah Thomas is down at 3,800 against Toronto. Not a great matchup, but I assume he's off the radar for this sort of slate simply because he doesn't have the good matchup and isn't playing 30-plus minutes.
Yeah, he keeps getting ownership, but he keeps getting worse. It seems unwarranted if you ask me. He did play 25 minutes last game. But right now it feels like 25 minutes is his cap, like his ceiling. And that's kind of concerning because Isaiah Thomas has not played good basketball. Like I said this to Josh or Adam recently, like when you're taking shots on guys that might only play 20 minutes, right, you want to have some confidence that that's the type of guy. Say Mitchell Robinson. He's been a big disappointment. But if Mitchell Robinson had 38 DraftKings points or 35 DraftKings points in 20 minutes, you wouldn't be shocked by that, right? There's a bunch of guys like that. You remember the Whiteside for Miami days off the bench? Like, he could play 20 minutes and you still felt like, okay, at 5K, he could crush this price tag. The list goes on. We have a lot of those players. Isaiah Thomas is not one of them. Over the last month, he's averaging 0.88 fantasy points per minute. And you might say, oh, it's not bad. No, 35 minutes, actually, you'd take that all day long at that price point. But 0.88 at 22 minutes is 19 fantasy points. If value doesn't open up, you're going to have to give Thomas some consideration. But as of now, I would like to avoid that.
Yep, that makes a ton of sense. And I think that is somebody when, again, if you're MMEing and you're sort of using projections and you're not necessarily doing a ton, take these sort of things into consideration, not saying to completely change a projection, but understand how and why someone contextually is playing the way they are over the past 10 games or 15 games or 20 games, and how that's all really shaking out from a single entry or a handful of entries that you're hand building. I can't imagine IT2 fitting in on this slate, but stranger things have happened, and clearly ownership and value opening up due to certain injuries will be a part of how this slate unfolds from there. Shooting guard.
I think I should also mention Shabazz Napier.
Yes, that makes sense.
Just because his minutes haven't been that big lately, but like if you look at, say, last game, he played 29. Jeff Teague in that same game played 19. So you got 48 there. Played 27 the game before that. Teague played 22. In the game before that, he comes out, plays 20 minutes. Teague played, I think it was 28, 22. Maybe I'm okay. So that one, it looks like they did. Oh, that's because it was a 30-point blowout. Okay. So, but you can see that those point guard minutes now, things start to get interesting. Could Napier get like 32 minutes? I think it's definitely possible. And if that happens to be the case, I don't think he's crazy at his price point. He hasn't been great, but especially if Towns is out, he's averaging 0.98 fantasy points per minute this season with Towns off the floor. Those are decent enough numbers at that price point. On FanDuel, Napier is 5K as well. And on Yahoo, he is $13.
I assume we can see some Point Wiggins here or Culver, but I guess that makes a ton of sense with Napier as an option at 5K.
You're right, though. I think Wiggins would be Point Wiggins in functionality only, not. I don't know if you're actually going to see him playing at the. You know what I mean?
Yes, like, absolutely.
So you might see another guy out there, technically your point guard, that isn't touching the basketball. That could be very possible too.
All right, let's take our talents to shooting guard and talk next about a position headlined by Zach LaVine. See what happens when Houston isn't on the slate. But Zach LaVine at the top at 8,700 against Philly. DeMar DeRozan at 8,100 against Atlanta. You pointed out DeJounte Murray. I assume a lot of that analysis can be applied to DeRozan, maybe even more so. 8,100, Dave, is a price point for DeRozan that he has underwhelmed at times this year, but he's playing a ton of minutes. He's playing 35, 38, 36, 37 minutes across multiple games in the 10-game stretch. We know that he can score. We know Atlanta can't really defend. They don't have any inside presence. He likes going to the hoop. Is DeRozan at 8,100 a play that jumps off the page at you?
You know, there are some things about DeRozan still this season, despite, I'd say, an overall underwhelming campaign thus far, that make him pretty appealing. Like this. he leads the entire league in drives per game.
Yep.
You know, I like that. For a guy that what we don't like about DeRozan, and it's driven us nuts forever. You remember that piss stat that I gave you years back?
Yes. Yeah.
It was a basketball analytics website. Really great stuff. There's a book too called Basketball Analytics. It's a really good read. But on their website, they had a stat that they came up with. It was piss, and it was like, it was poor something shot selection. Basically, 3-pointers and layups around the basket are your best shots. One, because it's most efficient around the rim with a much higher percentage of scoring and converting it. 3-pointers because it's worth 3 points and not 2. Like they had another thing, 2 for you, 3 for me, where the Warriors would just give teams layups, right? They just let them score because they'd come down and drain consecutive threes, and it didn't matter. You just couldn't catch up. But DeRozan, with this stat, I wish we could remember what it was called. But he had the highest piss in the league, right? And he still does. So he still absolutely loves taking those bad shots. But on the
painfully ill-advised shots.
Thank you. Is it ill-advised shot selection?
It's just painfully ill-advised shots.
Yeah,
I'm on the Google machine. Yes, PIS is what it's referred to. Yeah,
and PIS. Gotcha. Okay, yeah. And DeRozan was at the top of that for like 3 consecutive years. But this season, how about this? He's taking more shots at the rim than he ever has in his career outside of 2010. So since in almost a decade, this is the most shots he's taken at the rim. Almost 30% of his shots are coming at the rim. I like that. I wish he wasn't taking, 26 to 50% of his shots between 10 and like 17, 18 feet. But it is what it is. He's not going to shoot threes as long as he's getting to the basket enough, and as long as the usage is there, which we've seen it increasing 27% usage for DeMar DeRozan. I don't think you're wrong here. Now, the big thing with DeRozan is how much are we willing to pay for the guy? And so, okay, how about this? Over the last month, he's averaging 1.29 fantasy points per minute on 28% usage, 8% rebounding, 27% assists. Really solid. When you look at him dating back before the 15th of December, which we just ran that last one from, his per minute production was 1.11 on 27% usage and 23% assists. So he's been more efficient, and he's getting more assist opportunities. Against Atlanta, I'm with you, man. I think DeRozan, it's a long way of me saying, yeah, DeRozan's a really good play. He's also going to be, my guess, pretty popular.
Yeah, I would assume he's in the 20% owned range at least on this slate, depending on what sort of tournament or game you're in. Atlanta Hawks, again, I've hammered this pretty much every time I host here, but opponents' points in the paint, they rank dead last. There's no rim protection there. There's not anything happening for that Hawks defense that is protecting the rim, and Dave pointing out specifically about that. I will point out that I had found it from coachingtoolbox.net is how I found painfully ill-advised shot selection. It is Piss Fully, which is the book that was written by the former blogger at Basketball Analytics, Dr. Stephen Shea.
Something?
Yep. Dr. Stephen Shea.
Stephen Shea, yeah.
And so you get a redirect to try to buy the book, but that website is now defunct. So,
I figured it would be, but the book is still really good.
Yep.
Great book. Basketball Analytics.
So
spatial tracking.
We have Andrew Wiggins. Well, we have a ton of names to talk about here. Bradley Beal, Butler, Gilgeous-Alexander has had a really nice run for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Not the best matchup with the Miami Heat. Wiggins, we talked about point Wiggins potentially here. Price point of 6,700 has some definite upside. And then you have the likes of a Kevin Huerter coming off of a 38-minute, 8 for 14, 4 for 5 from three-point range, 58.25 DraftKings points. He gets the Spurs. Spurs have struggled on defense. What about the rest of shooting guard? What are some of the names you're looking at?
Kevin Huerter's kind of interesting, huh? I mean, there's a guy that we earlier in the year were like, hopefully he gets 26 minutes.
Right.
Last 2 games, well, one was a blowout. I don't know why. Oh, he fouled out against Washington. But, dude, Huerter in competitive games where he's not in foul trouble, which he usually never is getting monster minutes, like 38, and 37 over the last 2 competitive games where he wasn't in foul trouble. 38 and 37 minutes. Against Houston, he struggled. Only shot 10 times, shot 4 at 10 from the field, one of 3 from three-point range, didn't really get to the line. He doesn't get to the free throw line. Let's be fair. It's a rarity. But in that game, 15 rebounds, 8 assists, 23 points. Let's be honest here, right? This is an outlier. There's no question. But if he's going to continue to play such monster minutes, like if you're getting 37, 38 minutes in these games, it's not a crazy idea to say, all right, 230 and a half total. The Spurs are pretty big favorites here, but at the same time, I'm not opposed to looking at Kevin Huerter only because those minutes are huge. So what the big thing next is, and by the way, I would not put him anywhere close to a top play, but my guess is he's going to be like 1% owned. I still don't think the recency bias is strong enough there for someone like Huerter. I think the sticker shock will outweigh or overshadow his previous performance. So I'm not too worried about that. But on DraftKings 6,700 is very, very expensive. On FanDuel, Huerter's 5,500, Dan. That's crazy. 37, 38 minutes, seriously, 37 minutes in regulation from a guy in Huerter who doesn't have the highest floor, but is probably going to get that type of run. 5,500, man. Really like him there. Don't see myself doing it on DraftKings. Maybe a sprinkle of him, but that would be tough. As far as value goes, Matisse Thybulle, I'd mentioned that I expected him to enter the starting lineup last game and Mike Scott to go to the bench, just based on how poorly Scott had been playing. It was really pretty rudimentary analysis. And he did play 27 minutes. He's now played 27 plus minutes in back-to-back games. Look, he's not going to get a ton of shots up, but he is pretty solid in the steals department. He can block some shots as a swing man, and I have no problem with that. So if you need to get to somebody cheap, Thybulle right now is like some of the only value you're getting. You mentioned Andrew Wiggins. Yeah, Wiggins is fine, but I don't love him here. He's actually been better with Towns on the floor this season. So believe it or not, I would like him more with Towns out there. I know it sounds weird, but this Timberwolves team, just defensively or offensively, they don't really have anyone. You're not worried about slowing down Robert Covington. You're not worried about slowing down Gorgie Jang. You're not worried about slowing down Shabazz Napier. They don't have anybody. So teams have really made life difficult for Andrew Wiggins. And I mentioned this to Adam on yesterday's show. Get this. With Towns off the floor and on the floor, with Towns on the floor, he has an effective field goal percentage that is 8% higher with Towns on the floor this season. That's no fluke.
Makes a ton of sense there on where the usage and the shots go when off the floor. But small forward, obviously Wiggins translates here.
So I wanted to. So I'm sorry, very sorry, Dan. But I want your opinion on a guy. Bradley Beal is down to $7,600 on DraftKings. He played 27 minutes and 27 minutes over his last 2 games. His three-point shooting has evaporated. Scott Brooks is not running him for monster minutes. I don't know if this is a Steve Kerr situation where Kerr's like, yeah, we're going to cap Draymond Green at 28 and then 2 games later plays him 35. I don't know if that's the case, but what do we do with Brad Beal now? Because $7,600 Bradley Beal 2 weeks ago would have been 100% owned.
Yeah, I would say he missed 5 games, was back for 2 thus far, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I think that there's obvious concern.
I think he missed one in between, didn't he?
Potentially. Not. Yes, they might have missed one over.
He might not have, but yeah, go ahead.
But either way, I think the concern was even before the injury. He was out for those 5 games of the minutes limit. He went from playing in 38, 39, 37, then dropped way down to 24 and 30, and that has been to 27 each time out. I will have to at least convince myself not to play him. I think 7,600 for a guy that's shown such high-end usage, such high-end point scoring, such high-end ability with the assist rate on a terrible team. 7,600, I think, is a legitimate price point. I would love to play more than one lineup if I'm playing Bradley Beal, though. I don't feel comfortable having him be in my one entry into GPP simply because I'm projecting or guessing better what I'm doing that he's playing more than what I've seen the past 2 games.
Yep, fair enough.
The price point, if he's playing 35 minutes at 7,600 against Toronto, fine defensive team, but with what he's done in the past, I think it's a steal. But if he's going to play 27 minutes, 7,600 is a reasonable price point.
Oh, yeah, it is. If he's going to play like 36 or 30, if he ramps back up to where he was before 7,600, that's maybe the best value we've had on any player all year. So, yeah, definitely something to consider there. And last one, Colin Sexton, 6K. I'm assuming right now, if value doesn't come up against Memphis in a game with a a 230 total, Sexton might get some ownership. He's just a pretty low ceiling guy, falling in that 25 to 35 fantasy point range every day. It's hard for me to pay 6K for him, but I kind of understand it.
He's got great hair. But I'll say this: he's a scorer. He falls into the Andrew Wiggins category for me. Now Wiggins has done a bit more this year in giving us some peripheral stats and maybe coming into his own at times. But I think there's upside here against Memphis. Memphis is what, 3rd in pace on the season, or
what? They're top 5 last.
Yeah, they're 3rd. Yeah, 103.59. So makes a ton of sense. Cleveland is in a definite pace up spot. They're 25th overall. So I think a ton of these Cleveland pieces could at least be made sense of to play in this game against the Grizzlies at a 229, 230 over under. Small forward, you talked a bit about Simmons already. Tobias Harris has seen the Joel Embiid absence and seen some upside. Minutes are there. Clearly the shots are there as well. He's up to $8,300 here against Chicago, jumping up from 68, 66, 69 up to 8,300 in this matchup. You have DeRozan, who we talked about. Didn't talk about Jimmy Butler over at small shooting guard. Maybe we can talk about him here as kicking off the position. This is a guy who, again, early in the season was playing massive minutes and was getting massive usage, was doing everything for the Miami Heat, was putting up regular 50-point fantasy outings. We've seen a little bit more of a roller coaster ride over the past few weeks, maybe mid-season slowdown, some nagging injuries we don't know about. Field goal percentage hasn't been great in some games. But what do you make of Butler here against Oklahoma City and the rest of small forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think this game stays competitive, but we don't have a total on it yet. I don't like playing either team. I don't like playing against either team really. But Miami, matter of fact, it's kind of strange actually. Over the last since the start of December, has a bottom 10 defensive rating, which is kind of interesting, but plays at a slow pace. 97 possessions per 48. That is 3rd slowest in the league over that span. Oklahoma City, Dan, 6th slowest, so 5th slowest in the league over that stretch. So I would expect this to be a pretty crawling pace type of game. I do have interest in Butler at that price point, but really this is simply a price play for me on Jimmy and not anything else. But the more I look at it, the more I think it's going to be tough to get away from Jimmy Butler there because of that price point. Yeah.
All right. What else do you have at small forward?
Well, we talked about a lot of them already.
Yep.
So that makes it a little easier. Bradley Beal has small forward eligibility, by the way, now. I don't know when that happened. Maybe it happened last game and I just missed it.
Last night's eligibility was effing absurd. On Thursday night, there were just players who used to have MPE who completely lost it for Thursday night. I'm sure they'll get it back next time. It was a fun show with Adam of trying to figure out where people were and what was happening. But
was it that bad?
It was just multiple players where I was like, wait a second. This is
like
new.
Why is he there?
Well, like Giannis just had power forward eligibility for the first time in ages, and like it was just moments of like clearly a short slate and DK trying to do some things.
Has Giannis not? I guess you're right, huh? I guess he hasn't.
Huh. So, anyway,
continue. In the most recent 4 games that Embiid has missed, Tobias Harris is averaging 19 field goal attempts per game.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good. Can he hit them is the question, but pretty good. It's funny too because you look at some of these games and it seems pretty quiet, but he does have 3 straight points, rebound, doubles. The reason Tobias Harris, those games look empty is because He's not someone that's going to block shots. He's averaging half a block per game. He's averaging 0.8 steals, 3 assists per game. So with Harris, you really are dependent on scoring. And you saw last time out, 34 and 10, give you a really solid game. But he had 20 and 10 against Dallas and only had 36 fantasy points. So just completely empty outside of points and rebounds. That's what makes it tough to get to Harris. I think, and I may be, it's very possible that I'll be in the minority here, but if Tobias Harris ends up coming in with a lot of ownership and is one of the more popular players on this slate, I don't see myself really reaching up that high. Now, this is why sometimes it's so hard to write articles and do shows in a fair time, because DraftKings and FanDuel, the pricing can be so outrageous.
Yeah,
and one day it's FanDuel, the other day it's DraftKings. DraftKings has been much sharper than FanDuel this season now. And let me give you another example. Tobias Harris, Dan, 6,700. How do you even explain that?
He is 32 over on Yahoo, behind DeMar DeRozan as your high at 35, TJ Warren, Troy Brown at 22, 20, and OG at 18, respectively, to show you.
But 6,700 is nuts.
No, that's what I'm just pointing out. Harris fairly priced on Yahoo comparatively to the rest of the position. Yeah.
It's crazy. So I don't know, dude. At 6,700, you pretty much can't get away from him, and I'm not even sure you'd want to. We mentioned DeRozan already. I like that. And then if you're just looking for some shots in the dark, Thibault is so risky because you need him to get you those peripherals. He's very rarely going to get you the enough 3-pointers to make things happen. Rudy Gay against Atlanta, it is a pace up spot in a huge way. Like I said, Atlanta playing at the second fastest pace in the league since the start of December. That's good, but he might only play 20, 22 minutes. So you really don't know what you're going to get from him. And then you have DeAndre Hunter. With DeAndre Hunter, foul trouble and blowouts recently have affected him, but I would assume that he gets back to playing the big minutes that he was seeing. He's pretty cheap, but he's also a very low floor player. He's had a few games in the 40s this season from a fantasy point standpoint, but they're very few and far between. So that's kind of tough. Small forward has a lot of guys at shooting guard that I like a lot that we already talked about, but there's not a whole lot there. Tobias Harris is small forward eligible on FanDuel. He should be one of the first players into your lineup, in my opinion. And Pascal Siakam is 7,600 and small forward eligible on FanDuel as well. So just those two guys off the top make for pretty appealing options.
What about two names here that are also power forward eligible? Lets us, quote unquote, move forward to power forward. You have OG Anunoby and you have Carmelo Anthony. Question about OG coming off a really high-end game. I don't know if you were talking about OG, or maybe Adam was on Wednesday, whenever that was. My days are getting mixed up. 39 minutes, 41.75 DraftKings points.
Wasn't me.
Okay, fair enough. Price point jumps to 5,200. And Carmelo Anthony, I don't know that he's necessarily going to be a tournament play anytime this year, but he's been pretty consistent with the minutes, DK points in the mid to upper 30s. Is he somebody that is considerable from a cash game perspective? Somebody that you know what you're getting from a point and rebound perspective, and a decent matchup and a decent price point where you say, all right, I know what I'm getting, and I move forward?
It's a pretty wild thought, isn't it?
I mean, that I made, yes, that Carmelo Anthony could be a cash game option in 2020 DFS. Absolutely.
Okay, so you're at the utility spot on DraftKings.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather have Carmelo Anthony, 6,200?
Uh-huh.
I mean, if we're talking just strictly fantasy, the minutes have been there.
Yep.
And he is producing pretty decent numbers. He has a very low floor. Like, there have been a few games, as a matter of fact, where he's just been completely invisible. Houdini out there. Colin Sexton, who, it's funny because Hibbs and Carmelo Anthony's production have actually been very similar, produced in different ways to some extent. He doesn't rebound as well, but very similar. Melo, Sexton, or Danilo Gallinari at 6,300 at small forward. I know Sexton is shooting guard and point guard, but
I probably go Gallo, Melo, Sexton.
Okay. Yeah, Sexton's definitely coming in number 3 for me. It's very tough between those two because I hate that matchup for Danilo Gallinari. I think this is going to be a plotting game.
Yep.
But
do we have an over-under on that one yet?
No.
Okay.
But I'm 100% okay with you going Gallo over Anthony, but I think they're pretty close there.
Yeah, it's simply that's bias. That's me being biased towards Gallo and biased towards Melo in a negative way. That I'd prefer to have Gallo in my lineup because I'd hate myself less in the morning. So
right. What about Jay Crowder? 4,600 against the Cavs.
Is he still alive? Like I feel like he's injured all the time. But
I know. I think it's because we haven't wanted to pay 5,200 or whatever for him. But
all right, he is injured again. He has a hip injury. All right, just
he was, but he only missed like 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, no. I just knew that I had seen the Q-Tech. I would still 4,600 even for Drake. I'm staying away from Crowder. I mean, cash game. If he opens up 1,400 for me, that gets me to a Doncic for whatever reason in cash. I'll do that. I don't think I'd be making that move in cash. But
at the same price as Rudy Gay, I would take him over Rudy Gay because he could come out there and play 31 minutes. Rudy Gay, I don't see any way that happens.
DeAndre Hunter or
Jay Crowder.
I'm asking you. Yeah, Jay Crowder.
Okay. Yeah. Jay Crowder's a 0.86 fantasy point per minute guy on the season. It's not spectacular, but it's also not terrible. You take DeAndre Hunter, he is a 0.67 fantasy point per minute player. And I don't think there's any guarantee right now that he's actually going to get back to seeing 35 or 36 minutes a night. So Crowder to me isn't that crazy. It is against Cleveland. Like I said, this game has a 229 total. It is a very favorable matchup. It's slower in pace for Memphis, but still 229 significant. I think if Crowder plays and you get 30 minutes from him, you could do a lot worse on this slate. There's not a lot of value right now, man.
All right, where else are we going at power forward? I think we've hit some of these pieces in here. You have Sabonis at the top, who continues to produce double-doubles. I mean, he's just been a machine on the year. We have Harris. You mentioned Siakam when talking about FanDuel. Collins has not necessarily shown the same regular pace of great play, but has 3 out of 4 last 4 games has been really, really solid. Price point up. Drops down to 7,700 here in a matchup against San Antonio. That stands out a bit to me. You have Horford continuing to play without Embiid, Jaren Jackson, Danilo, Carmelo. We can go on from there. But top end, power forward, anybody stand out to you as a potential play?
I want to start with Aldridge, and then we'll work our way back. But Aldridge has struggled lately. But listen to some of the matchups that he's faced. This is just over his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. You ready for this? Miami, Toronto, Memphis, Boston, Milwaukee, OKC. So outside of Memphis, and Joe Val's not exactly a complete pushover, that is a gauntlet, man. What a brutal stretch of games for a center. What I'm getting at is it has subsequently brought his price tag down. And that makes him pretty interesting to me. If you look at the teams and how they've fared against centers this year, Toronto allows the fewest points. Even with Gasol out, they've been very good. Miami's down there. Boston, Milwaukee, they're all like top 10. They're all top 10 at limiting efficiency to opposing centers. So I think this is a great bounce back spot for Aldridge. I'm not worried at all about him going up against the likes of John Collins or Damian Jones. It's a good spot. And his price is at least down from where it was. So LaMarcus Aldridge here, we mentioned DeRozan as well. These guys are going to be popular, I would think. But the big thing to keep in mind is DeRozan's still getting 34 minutes a night right now. He's still playing huge minutes. He just hasn't been good with them. But give me this beautiful matchup against Atlanta, and I think it's a recipe for success and a big bounce back opportunity for him here.
I love that. I love that call. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, why not?
We'll roll back the tape, points in the paint, scoring, like everything. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe he won't be crazy popular. I think it's likely that you're going to see a pretty popular LaMarcus Aldridge, but I don't know. The opportunity cost is not that high. Like he's not he's not egregiously overpriced. I think there's like 7 power forwards that are priced above him. So I don't hate that at all. And I would assume that this is a pretty good spot where he can operate in the post. The Hawks are allowing the 4th most points per possession in post-ups this season, also the 4th most points. I'm all about it. Sabonis, you mentioned, instant double-double. I've said a lot, but I like him a whole lot more if Towns plays. The Timberwolves are significantly worse defensively when Karl Anthony Towns is on the floor. They're also much better offensively. So I think this game would still stay close, but you'd also see a lot easier opportunity around the basket for Sabonis if Gorgie Jang comes off the bench and doesn't start. So, yeah, it's not a bad position. I mentioned Siakam. Siakam's price on FanDuel and DraftKings is pretty reasonable. He's small forward on FanDuel, where Tobias Harris is just crazy underpriced. But I still like Siakam quite a bit. He's actually one of the better point per dollar values you're going to find on this slate. Like, I don't see any way I could play Horford over Siakam. I get it. Embiid is out, but I still like Siakam quite a bit more at a very comparable price point. And then the last one I'll throw out here at the top, because there's a lot. There's probably the deepest at the top of any position. John Collins has pretty much been an instant double-double for the most part. He's had a couple games there where he wasn't, but he should be. The minutes and some foul trouble is a little bit concerning, but if John Collins comes back and gets the 32, 33 minutes, 7,700 for him is also very reasonable. So, yeah, there's a lot at the top as power forward that I like a lot.
I assume Kevin Love is fine as well, right? I mean, if he's playing 35 minutes against the Memphis Grizzlies, he should be in a fine spot at 7,200.
Yeah. No, that's another great one. And his minutes have been through the roof, 36, 38, 37, 33.
They want to trade him so badly.
I know. Yeah, straight showcase right now. Yeah, I like that, Dan. Kevin Love is another guy that stands out. I would honestly rather have Kevin Love over Al Horford as well.
Yeah, what will be interesting is the ownership here between Aldridge and Love at 72 and 71. You mentioned Horford. Absolutely. At 7,500 as well.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, exactly. So the power forward may be where you really can differentiate or pivot off of some of the higher owned guys and get comparable, if not even better, production on Friday's slate. What's great is when you open up ESPN and like 10 minutes later, the highlights from a game start playing in your headphones and you forgot completely you had it open.
Dude, it is so annoying. Ever since they revamped their site or whatever, it's driven me nuts. I used to use it all the time for like simple player page lookups and stuff. I hardly use it at all anymore because what they did to it is gross.
But it's like it waits.
I know, but you don't think it's coming.
Exactly.
And then
all
boom.
of a sudden you hear Bob Wischusen yelling at you from ESPN.
It's so annoying.
We move to close out. Any value at power forward? We just talked about a ton of top end. We talked about Gallinari. We talked about Melo at small forward a little bit. I'm not seeing anyone necessarily worth spending too much time on, but any names you think worthwhile? I'm not saying anybody. But
here's one, okay? And it is all going to come down to what his price is. Luke Cornett.
All right.
He's probable. What'd you say?
I said, all right.
Well, I'll tell you why. He's minimum salary on Yahoo, by the way. Insane. You're absolutely playing him there. Yes, you 100% have to play him. If I played 150 lineups or whatever their max is on Yahoo, I think I'd have Cornett in every lineup.
The max in the 50K baller, 10K to first, is 114. Which I don't think I've ever seen that.
114. Here's why. I'll tell you why. Now, is he a per-minute beast? No, not saying he is. But Daniel Gafford is out. Already been ruled out of this one, right? So now you have no Gafford and you have no Wendell Carter Jr. So what does that leave you with? Well, Cristiano Felicio is going to play like 3 minutes in this game, maybe 5, who knows, but not a lot. Markkanen's going to get minutes, but he's got to soak a lot of that up at the 4. Luke Cornett played 35 minutes last game. Gafford got hurt a minute and a half into it. Cornett came in, played 9 minutes and 40 seconds, and then he came out for like 5 minutes. Then he played 9 minutes to close out the half. He started the second half, played 5 minutes, came back in, played 4 minutes and then closed the game with 7 minutes. So I'm not projecting him for 36 minutes, but I am going to give him 32 or 33 minutes. And at minimum salary, even on FanDuel, I think he's like 42. That's not crazy at all. Power forward eligible. Luke Cornett, even if 49 on DraftKings, if we're giving him that much run, isn't crazy. But on Yahoo right now, I don't see any way you get away from that.
Yep, I think that's a good call out here as we try to figure out where we might be leaning. I actually was pulling up Thaddeus Young as you mentioned that because I knew of the injury, but Cornett makes a whole lot more sense than looking at someone like Thad Young, who did play 21 minutes, had a very good game last time out against Washington, 18 points, 8 boards, but Cornett at a dirt cheap price point with those minutes up for grabs with the injuries in the center spot make a ton more sense.
And it's possible that like you see a Markkanen starting lineup with Thad because the Sixers don't have Joel Embiid.
Right.
But I still don't think that'll be the case. If I had to guess, Cornett's in the starting lineup.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think that'll be, and minutes even in the starting lineup, and Cornett would probably be really low owned too, right? If Cornett's not in the starting lineup,
if
people start to freak out and say, "Oh, he's not going to play." And
I wouldn't want him at like 49 on DraftKings, but at minimum salary on Yahoo, if he's not in the starting lineup, you could still probably get 30 minutes from him there. Yeah.
All right, let's talk center and close it out. Towns we've talked about already with the Q tag, illness, and the knee. Sabonis is eligible here, but let's talk about some center-only eligible players. Sam Whiteside against Dallas. Bam Adebayo gets Oklahoma City. Serge Ibaka, Jonas Valanciunas, Tristan Thompson, Steven Adams. The list goes on. Obviously, we've talked about a bunch of the MPE guys here on DK who have multi-position eligibility. Exactly what MPE stands for. I don't know why I said that. But anyway, center, what do you got?
It's weird that Porzingis was expected to return and then just late scratched.
Yep.
Maybe this knee is worse than we initially suspected. I don't know. Dwight Powell, kind of interesting there, is the only reason I mentioned it. He played 34 minutes last game. How much Porzingis being out influences it? Not a ton. Maxi Kleber's also getting run there. But if you're talking about like the best value here, we already talked we already talked about Aldridge. We already talked about Siakam. We already talked about a lot of these guys, Horford, a lot of them, right? But Whiteside here at 8,400 is pretty appealing. And then Tristan Thompson at 6,500 also stands out as a decent mid-range option that I think will probably be relatively popular, coming off a brutal 10 fantasy point game with no points and 8 rebounds in 24 minutes in that blowout loss to the Clippers. Just really, really bad. But he has played pretty well lately, so I'm not going to take one game and hold that entirely against him. It's funny, though, because when you look at this game, like Joe Val, you don't know what type of minutes you're going to get from him. But if you get 30 or 29, he stands out for sure at 6,900. And then even a guy like Jaren Jackson isn't the craziest play at 6,800. Furthest thing from a priority. But again, 229 over under. I think this game stays at least relatively close and should be very high scoring. There's a decent amount in that front court. You already mentioned Kevin Love that would make for pretty palatable options on this slate. Outside of that, the top price guys we all touched on with power forward already.
Any cheap centers worthwhile? You already mentioned Cornett, probably not standing out on DK, but other sites. Anybody else worthwhile?
Honestly, no, not really. Unless injury news breaks, which it's very possible that we get some type of injury news that shakes things up a little bit. Unless it does, I'm just looking now to see like what are the major injuries that we're looking at that we haven't talked about, and I don't.
Do you have minutes projections yet, or just point like overall projections that you?
I don't. I do my own minute projections the next day.
The day of. Okay. I'm just wondering what in your mind Marc Gasol would play here against Washington, because I like him enough at 4,800 to mention him here. I think he has enough upside. I know Washington struggled against centers in the past. I just don't know how many minutes he would play in this matchup.
Well, we can close the show out with this and just give it a quick breakdown, and I'll explain to you where I'm coming from here. got to play over 30. And at least in a close game, I would certainly assume he plays over 30 if Nick Nurse does what he did last game, and that was starting Ibaka and Gasol. I mean, these guys played hefty minutes alongside each other, like big minutes alongside each other. Looking at it now, Gasol and Ibaka played, oh my God, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and then none in the second quarter together. Third, 10, 11, 12, they're 15 minutes. Okay, so 15 minutes alongside each other. That's very significant, though. Ibaka played 30 and Gasol played 31 or 32. Now, also keep in mind that Van Vliet is questionable. So if he plays, you either see Ibaka and Gasol still, or you see Anunoby go back to the bench and Van Vliet start.
That makes sense. So I wanted to highlight Mark there a bit for a potential upside at sub 5K at center. I don't know that you're going to necessarily have to get there. Looking at some of the price points across each position with some upside and maybe you play Love and Aldridge. You use one at center, one at power forward. Well, I guess on DK, I think Love is just power forward eligible. So you play Love at power forward, Aldridge at center, and you call it a day. But maybe on a couple of other sites, you have some flexibility on where position eligibility lines up. Let me just check on Yahoo here. Again, we're brought to you in part by Yahoo. Don't forget, you can $17 on Yahoo, Mark Gasol. Use promo code Osmo. Gets you $30 in Yahoo Sports reward points. You can use that to play. I did mention the 50K baller that has 114 max entry per person, 3,800 total entries, $15 to get into that tournament, 12.3% management fee, 950 places are paid. And if you want more information on Yahoo strictly from us, check out Emacs article pretty much every day, and he has links and sign up links to get you going over there. Lofty, we're coming to the end of our podcast. Went a little longer here talking baseball at the top, but that is always fun. Haven't gone on a random tangent in a long, long time. We will talk about top end plays. Obviously, Embiid is out. Towns, let's say Towns is playing. We'll go 9K and above. Simmons, Trae Young, Towns, and Doncic. Not exactly the best mix here to say who you want to build a lineup around, but looking now, just because we play this game each and every time we podcast together, which of these 4 names do you think would be most likely to be the starter of a lineup for you? Simmons, Young, Towns, or Doncic?
Right now, I want to say Doncic so badly, and I think I would still find a way to make it work. But I don't think we can kid ourselves into thinking that value is really deep right now. There's not a lot of it. And I don't know about you, but it feels like we didn't even mention Lowry if Van Vliet sits. Lowry against Washington is another one. Doesn't it feel like the mid-range and the 8K and 7K range, even the 6K range, like upper 6K range, is pretty stacked on this slate. So a balanced lineup approach, if Doncic is going to be really popular, and I love him, but if he is going to be really popular, and that means that you have to roster guys like Matisse Thybulle, in the same lineup as Bryn Forbes or Rudy Gay and DeAndre Hunter, then I think I would definitely be willing to take a look at the balanced build.
Yeah, it does feel like as we went through, balance is where it makes most sense as of right now. It has the most upside, but clearly that can change throughout the day on Friday. That's why you tune into the NBA strategy show in the morning. You get the deeper dive with Adam and Dave at 5 p.m. and then live before lock after that. If you're a member of Osmo.com, and why the hell aren't you? If you're not, you get the deep dive, which is the article. You get projections, you get ownership projections, you get the lineup builder. You can add on the optimizer as well. So tons of ways to really optimize what we do at Osmo and what Alex and the rest of the crew really do from a statistical standpoint each and every week and day when it comes to NBA DFS. You find Dave on Twitter at Lofty_D. For those who don't know, that's LOUGHY_D. You find him on Sirius 210 XM87. Are you back this weekend? Times are the same. What do we got going on over there?
Yeah, Saturday. We'll be back Saturday, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll move back to the 3 slot after the Super Bowl. And Sunday we're off because everyone's watching football.
Right. That's fair. And find me on Twitter if you so choose at Dan Strafford. It's Osmo_com for the website. Of course, Osmo.com is the URL if you want to check out more on over there. Tons of free content. content available for you each and every day as well. With that said, tomorrow morning you get EMAC, you get Adam right here on the DFS Early Bird presented by Osmo.com.